Hello and welcome to episode 457 of the Stacey West podcast, and doubtless going to be another upbeat show for everybody who's watching. My name is Gary. I will be your Parma Violet farmer host for this evening, and I'm joined not by a Parma Violet, but he may well be a farmer of stats, no less. Chris Lamming.
Maybe so. Hello. How are you?
Yeah, I'm a little bit jaded actually, because I had the misfortune of watching the Peaky Blinders film last night, and it did not live up to expectation. So,
That is a shame. I'm pleased you watched it because it means I haven't got to now, because I was tempted to watch that, and I will just take your word for it that it's not worth the time.
Have you seen the series?
Yes, love the series.
So in the series, for me, and we'll come on to football, but the series for me is all about how they build up the antagonists, like Adrian Brody, or whatever his name was, who played Luca Changretta. Like, they crept him in, they drip fed it in, and they built the suspense, and they built all of the characters and the situations. For me, you can't always get a series into a film. You put a series into a film, and the film's got an hour and a half to do it. And it wasted some good characters. Barry, what's his face, who's been good in a couple of things recently. He plays the son, Peaky Blinder, Tommy Shelby's son. But there was all sorts of storylines that they introduced that hadn't happened in the series, that they were just assuming that you would then be all right with them introducing halfway through. Sod that. So yeah, waste of time. Waste of my time last night, that was.
Fair enough. I had an early night last night. I had quite a late one on Friday, so it got to about 9:30, and I was flagging. So we was actually having quite an in-depth conversation, weren't we, on the Stacey West group chat about various things. And then I kind of just nodded off. So I just nodded off. And then I woke up. I've been very, very busy today. So I logged back into the group chat about maybe an hour or two ago, and there was like 200 odd messages in there. It's impossible to keep up with everything.
And also, of course, I am going to have to mention the fact that it is 10 years to the day that I first created the Stacey West. Now, it's not actually 10 years to the day since I first started writing about Lincoln. That was in 1997. And the first articles that I wrote that ended up on this site, I wrote in January 2015. So to be fair, it's not exactly 10 years since I started writing either, but it is 10 years since I started the site. 10 years and one night ago, I know I had a bath. Because I had a website, and it was called something like It's All a Game or something like that, and I was doing gaming on there and film reviews and football as well. And I just suddenly thought, you know what, I ought to put all of my football in one place, didn't I? So yeah, I didn't give any thought at all to the name. I was just like, well, I'm just going to call it the Stacey West because that's where I watched all my football. And never did I think that in 10 years' time, I'd be doing a live podcast where as soon as we go live, there are 63 people watching, and within 3 minutes, it's 104. Never did I think that the day that I'd put the 10 years on, that I'd get pupils who I'd taught as a result of the Stacey West messaging me saying, you know, they were in secondary school when I started it. They went on the Priory course, and now they're in university, inspired by me, of all people. I didn't ever think 10 years ago that any sort of way that I inspired kids would be positive. So I am immensely happy that it's been a force for good. But yes, so just to everyone that has messaged me, thank you very much indeed. And thank you everybody for the support, podcast on the site and everything. It is a labor of love, which has now become my weekly labor. And hopefully in 10 years' time, we'll be going 20 years of the Stacey West. Isn't he going to give up fairly soon? So.
Hasn't worked out too badly at all, has it? That decision 10 years ago. Congratulations, mate. Yeah, very well deserved.
Yeah. And of course, 10 years ago, I was writing about a visit to Tranmere in the end of the 2015-16 season. That would not bring any joy that season at all. Chris Moises was doing the best he could for free. We had a manager working for free. We were training in different places. There was 3,000 there if we were lucky. That was the club. And 10 years on, we're about to talk about beating Rotherham United, by the way, for the first time in the league since the Stacey West has been going, for the first time in the league this century, if I'm honest. It's fact. We're talking about being top of the league by 7 points, by clear of Bolton by 18 points. We're talking about the Championship, which we are going to talk about a little bit later on today. Honestly, Ben sometimes does that. When Ben does his analysis, he'll sometimes go, yeah, what do we say about that? And I've always thought, you know, we're not paid, but you've got to have something to say about that because we're live on air. And now I just think, Honestly, what? Yeah,
Like, you're right though, because like we will do our best to articulate what's going on and how we feel about it. But I do feel like it's really difficult, probably impossible, to actually put how it feels into words. It really is. Like, we'll all feel slightly different, but I can't put my finger on like a word that best describes it. It's just, yeah, it's unbelievable. It's past our wildest dreams. CJ messaged me actually yesterday, possibly, and he said, as someone who's been supporting the club for a long time, like, how do you feel? And did it even cross your mind that this might be a possibility? And I was like, no, this is why it feels really different, because when we was in League Two under Keith, like, kind of thinking, wouldn't it be nice if we could go and have a go at League One? I feel like we deserve it after those 5 years in the playoffs. I feel like we could maybe become a League One club. And then, of course, we dropped down a bit, end up in the National League, and we dreamed of getting back into the league. But when that ball got rolling, you think, you know what, we particularly when the crowd started to increase to kind of 5, 6, 7,000 in the National League, that second half of the season, you think, we could be a League One club. We could be a sustainable, kind of an established League One club at some point. Wouldn't that be absolutely amazing? And that was as far as the dream went in my mind. I genuinely, like, that was the pinnacle of my wildest dreams. So for us to be on the cusp of not just nicking a promotion in the playoffs, but like automatic promotion to the Championship, is beyond anything I ever thought was possible. So I don't know how I feel. I think it's probably the best way of putting it. But it was never an expectation, or even a, what do you call it, if it wasn't even a dream in the first place?
don't know, but for me, it was, because in 2017, and I shared the article in the Discord earlier today, I actually wrote an article about, I actually titled it something like Championship 2020 with a question mark. So all being well, will be 6 years after that. But it was just as we'd announced the training ground, before we even had the training ground. So there we go. Right. There's a game to talk about. You never know. We might have the odd Miller creeping in here, wanting to know if I am still anti-Rotherham. You remember when we lost 3-0 there? I said Lincoln thrashed football in a library or something like that. I said infected last year when we went there, because I said that Steve Evans had infected Rotherham United. I think they will turn a corner under Lee Clark, but I think they will do so in League Two. Honest assessment. It won't be up to us to discuss them next season, all being well, but it is up to us to discuss them now. And we'll start discussing them by discussing us and our team selection. There was a handful of changes. Anything that really caught your eye in the changes?
Not really, to be honest. It was as near to as predictable as possible, I think. Riley Taylor coming in for the sadly injured Adam Reach, of course, but it was very much a back four. It was sometimes when we have seen Riley in the starting lineup, it has often been because we're starting in a back three, but it was absolutely a back four. You know, I would say back to what is our established midfield two in Ivan and Connor. I know Tom Bayliss started the season really well there and has been biding his time since coming back from his injury. But I think, you know, Ivan has taken his chance there, and probably no surprise to see him and Connor both favoured there. House has been good on the left. Hackett back on the right. Moreland in behind Street has been pretty standard over the last few weeks, really.
I think in my starting 11, I called Tom Bayliss to start because of that kind of more forward-thinking attacking midfield. But actually, it makes sense for Ivan to start because, it made more sense for Tom Bayliss to start because I also thought that he could have the game and Ivan would then get the rest, and then Ivan would go off to play in the Ukraine and Tom would get the rest. So that was perhaps the surprise. I actually thought Ivan played really well. And I know at the minute he's probably one of your favourite players. I mean, I really like him. There's a no-nonsense kind of element about him and he really buys into the club. So, but the great thing is we're always talking about team selection now, not as in who's missing this week. And, you know, for a couple of seasons, we had who is it that's not going to make it this week. So I think we've been lucky. I know obviously Adam Reach now injured, Freddie Draper injured, a couple of injuries, but even so, we're able to just fill those gaps nicely. Yeah,
I think that's the point, though, because some are still missing, but we're not missing them as much as maybe we would have done historically because of the depth that the club has built in the transfer window. So yeah, even though we have actually got a few on the treatment table at the moment, it doesn't really feel like it because the team we're putting out is more than capable and pretty consistent in their performances, regardless of who starts.
I mean, imagine if if Michael actually had Josh Honohan and James Collins and Adam Jackson and Adam Reach all available, and Freddie Draper all available to choose from, given who came on as well, it'd be difficult. I wouldn't want that job. I really wouldn't. But then I suppose actually, who wouldn't want Michael Scavali's job now? Because he's got great staff around him. He's got plenty to choose from. And they have to be tactically aware. And for the first 10 minutes of the game yesterday, by his own admission, Rotherham surprised him. And in the press box, the Rotherham guys behind me and the audio descriptive guys were behind me. And there was some debate from everybody as to whether they were starting as a 5 with Baptiste in the back sort of 5, or whether Baptiste was going to play in the middle and it was going to be a 4. So nobody really knew. And that's one of those wild cards that having a new manager in the dugout kind of throws up, in that we couldn't really prepare for it. Probably the first 10 minutes, that was obvious. I think there was one shot in the first 15 minutes, and that was ours. It was pretty, not a non-entity, but it was clear that we needed to make some sort of small tweaks to understand how they were playing and combat it, didn't we?
Yeah, and I think Michael kind of alluded to it a little bit in his press conference pre-match, in saying that this is going to really be about us and how we look after ourselves, how we play, partly because we're at home and it's important that we have an identity, but also partly we can't make as many tweaks or predictions pre-match because of the new manager coming in. You can read a little bit into kind of maybe player metrics and where potential weak spots might be, but like the tactical side is a little bit of an unknown for Rotherham. And particularly as we found out on Tuesday night against Huddersfield, teams probably are going to be changing quite a bit away from their norm against us now. I'd argue with quite a few teams have left it quite late in the season to do that, but you appear that is the case. But it didn't take us long to get a foothold in the game. Rotherham were not just a low block; they were a very, very, very low block. Pretty basic 4-2-3-1, which makes sense for the new manager coming in this week. You're not going to do too much that's away from the comfort zone for a lot of players, despite them playing a back 3 for the majority of the season. Most players know how to fit into a pretty standard 4-2-3-1. But yeah, once we got a foothold in the game, like even though there wasn't a huge amount of goal malfunction until we had that flurry maybe just before the goal, like Rotherham was sitting so deep. They didn't engage with us at all in our half. So we had a lot of the ball in the first 10-15 minutes, which is something we're probably going to have to get used to this season. I don't imagine we'll have to get too used to it for next season, if I'm honest, but certainly for the end of this season, we probably do. If yeah, of course, if we do. But yeah, it's something that we're getting used to now. But Rotherham had no intention of pressing high at all. It was often you'll see a low block, but there's a little bit of pressure on the ball. But there was 2 or 3 times where the ball was being played literally on the halfway line in the first 10-15 minutes, and there was no intensity to even close the ball down. It was just simply blocking passing lanes. But as soon as we were able to kind of work out their shape, find where the position, like where the space was, which was generally outside of both centre backs, then yeah, they didn't really have a sniff for the rest of the half, did they?
No. Now, Phil Bennett in the comments has picked up on something I wanted to mention. Ben Howe scared the bejesus out of their number 2. He didn't want to know after the first 2 tackles. Now, that was Joe Rafferty. Now, Joe Rafferty played the full 90 minutes for Portsmouth the day that we were beaten 2-0 by them, and we were kind of robbed of the playoff. Not robbed, but we lost the playoff place. Danny Mandroy had scored the penalty, ifs, buts, all that sort of thing. Very proud day for the club. Everybody applauded the team, even though it was 2-0. I remember that. It really stuck in my mind. That was a real sense of unity in failure, and you don't often get unity in failure. You get unity in success, but not in failure. And I wondered if there was something there, because House put 2 really chunky challenges in. Like, the first one won the ball and didn't follow through as such. It's just have some of that. But the second one, like, Rafferty's played it, and for me, like, it's a free kick. Like, he's just smashed him, basically. He's just gone straight through him. And then the thing is, like, he's gone down and House has gone over a little bit later and helped him up, and there was no animosity at all. It's just like, Jesus, honestly, like, I thought he'd proper done him and smashed him in the face, to be honest, but the replays were a little bit less conclusive. But I still kind of like that. There's still that physicality about us. It's, and maybe I think in the past, Rotherham have bullied us. Like, Rotherham are one of those teams that have always been bigger and stronger. Like when we lost at their place 2 years ago, you and I went, and there was the hour-long, the kickoff was delayed for ages. And then Adam Jackson got absolutely smashed by Hakeem Odafin. Was it Odafin?
Yes, I think it was Odafin. Yeah.
Absolutely smashed him. And like, we just got bullied off the pitch that day. And for me, it almost just felt like we've gone out there saying, right, we're not going to be bullied now. And Ben House is the little guy. Like, when you watch a film and there's a kid getting bullied by everyone, and then there's just like a guy that's no nonsense and he's not one of the popular kids, but all of a sudden he pops up as hard as nails and he defends the bullied kid. For me, that's Ben House. He's that, like, he doesn't look hard, but as soon as you cross him, like, he's smashing you all over the place. So I thought that was interesting, in that even though, like you just said, we kind of hadn't really figured out how to get at them at that point, we knew how to get into them, if you know what I mean.
Yeah, and in that shape, like, once you've worked it out, it's just 4-2-3-1 versus 4-2-3-1, so it's nearly man for man. On the wings, it certainly is. So House had a one-on-one battle with Rafferty. That is who was responsible for him. So I suppose it's kind of a little bit what Sunday League-ish in regard to that mentality. You let him know you're there early doors, and he did.
Reducer.
Yeah, it is. It's a little bit of that, but it is just there's a reason that's a cliche. It's because it flipping works a lot of the time. And it's interesting that Rafferty actually gave the ball away three times in his own half in the game, and all three of those were directly to Ben House. I think it's quite interesting.
Very much so. So we're talking first goal, and it's going to be a good opportunity for us to talk about somebody that is setting the chat alight, Riley Towler. Because
very good.
Right, we can break this goal down quite a bit. But for me, it's about Towler, because McGrandles gives him the ball. He then plays a 1-2, I think, with Moylan, but I might be wrong. But McGrandles, I think he plays a 1-2 with McGrandles, or whichever way it goes. Then he threads that ball through. He splits the centre half and the holding midfielder, which is Baptiste and Agber, for Rico. Now, Rico's strike is good. For me, it's not an own goal. I get why it might be given as an own goal, because the keeper has stopped it and then it's hit him and gone in after he stopped it. But for me, if it's the keeper doing it and the shot was on target, for me, it's Rico's goal. But it's all about Riley Towler, and he did what Adam Reach would do. And for somebody who is apparently a centre back playing left back, I just thought he was outstanding yesterday. And you said beforehand you'd like to pick up on him as well. So now is a good time to do so.
Perfect. Yeah, I was really impressed with Riley Towler. Him coming in for Reach, I thought there's no bother there. Riley has played there previously in a 4. He's obviously a little bit different to Adam Reach. He's a little, like you say, traditionally a centre back playing at left back. I think he has looked more comfortable there, but he's generally a little bit less more risk averse, should I say. He's a little bit more simple in his decision making. Doesn't try the excessive or the kind of the killer ball too often, until recently, and particularly Saturday, because I felt particularly positionally he was so much more aggressive than we've seen him when at left back before. He was in exactly the same sort of positions that you'd expect Adam Reach to have been in those sort of areas. His delivery from crosses was really good. One really good deep one in the second half, I think, maybe the first half, towards the end of the first half, actually, where he's seen we had a 2v1 on the far post and he's looped it all the way. And I think it was Hackett that came on the back post to get something on it. And of course, the weight, his intelligence and his weight of his pass to set up Rico was great. I thought he absolutely did not look like a centre-back playing at left-back yesterday. He just looked like a very, very, very competent League One Championship-bound left-back for me. I thought he was excellent. Really did.
And to be fair, it plays into the last home game where he's put that 40-yard crossfield ball in that even had my mate Pete messaging me, mentioning the pass long before the goal went in against Stockport, I think it was, wasn't it? I think he looked really good. And I'm really pleased because obviously Huddersfield, he got his late goal as well. And it's just that thing again, isn't it, where we were saying a couple of weeks ago, I obviously got the reference to the Hydra in on the EFL Access All Areas podcast, and they said, we've never had Greek mythology quoted, and it's just another one. Adam Reach, chop the head off, Adam Reach gets injured, up pops Riley Towler, and he's every bit as good. So, and for you, dubious goal or not?
No, I think it's Hackett's goal, personally. And if you're the keeper, you want that to go to the striker. Really, you don't want to be given an OG against you there. I don't know if maybe his initial shot. I don't think there was a particularly clear angle as to whether it was actually on target or not.
100%.
Or was it? Oh, that's bizarre. Then that's given us an own goal then, because if it was heading off target and then there's a touch, defender or goalkeeper, you can kind of understand why it's then credited as an own goal. But if it's on target and the keeper just doesn't get a particularly convincing save on it, then it's just Hackett's goal. I'd be surprised if that doesn't change. I don't know how you go about getting it changed, but I'd be surprised if it wasn't, because actually I think if any goal was an own goal, it was Ben House's.
Well, I've been speaking to somebody at the club, and they have basically said that the Opta guy in the press box will have seen it and may have interpreted it wrong because they don't have replays. And the club, unofficially, are fairly confident that it could be amended. There was a hint that Rob Street has touched it on the line, so it may actually end up as Rob Street's goal. But if he does, that would be really, really harsh. And
I thought Rob, because if you look at the replay, Rob goes to just tap it, and then he makes a very clear gesture. But I thought it was maybe that's what it was. I actually thought it was, I'm actually not going to nick this off my mate. I thought it was like a bit of a team ethic sort of thing. I'm not going to just be a twat and do a tapping on the line, David Nugent for England-esque at one time. But maybe I could have read a little bit more into that, maybe. But ultimately, it was a goal. It was 1-0, and I didn't feel nervous about this game, but I did feel that it wasn't necessarily going to be as simple as a lot of people were predicting, mainly because no game is actually that simple, or it didn't feel like it is. We make them look it sometimes, but they're not. It's not. The whole new manager changed, a bit of a confidence. I thought if we could score early, it'd be fine. But if we don't score early, maybe the longer it stays at 0-0, they build a bit of confidence that they wouldn't have had under Matt Hamshaw, and it could become a challenging game. But I've got no reason to think that, really, have I? Because this team is so consistent, so relentless is a word that keeps getting used, and rightly so. And ultimately, we did what we always do. We started reasonably well, got a foothold in the game, scored the first goal, and then made the rest of the first half look incredibly comfortable, and were very, very dominant.
Well, the second goal is quality again, and I think of Bartholomew and Deriqua, because I think Deriqua sold a pass behind Bartholomew. He's then rescued it.
He's done really well to get a little toe on that.
And then Conor McGrandle's hugely underrated in everything that he does, and that's with us saying he's one of our best players. But it's just a cracking ball over the top. Rico's a confident player. For me, if he scores in a game, I'm always going to back him to get another goal or another assist. He's one of those players that it just seems when it goes for him once, he grows with confidence and stature. He's done really well. It's a decent volley by Ben House. We know that Ben House isn't a natural finisher. We don't have Ben House in our team because every time he gets in the 18-yard area, he gets a shot on target. That isn't his skill set. But he's actually taken up a really good position. It's a good ball across. It's come off Rafferty. If anything, that's the one that's the own goal. And it's not because it's another shot on target that just hits Rafferty and wrong foots the goalkeeper. So it's Ben House's, but it's as close as an own goal to anything. And the fact that House just kind of didn't really celebrate almost suggests that he's kind of gone, yeah, all right then. But again, it was just, why would you celebrate? I suppose, but it's just another goal in a long season, isn't
it? I don't like to use this word lightly, but it did feel easy. I know we earned that by the work rate that we put in the organisation and all the stuff that we've been waxing lyrical around for the whole season. It's not a mistake. It's not by accident, is it, that we're getting this? But it did feel quite simple at that point. It did feel kind of, how many would it be at that point? And the fact that, the team didn't massively celebrate too excessively. It was just very professional. And from the players' perspective, it felt just quite expected, maybe. But also, you mentioned House, and not necessarily there because of his finishing ability. One thing that I think is maybe not credited as much as it potentially could be is how often he gets into those really, really good, clear, high percentage positions. Doesn't always finish cleanly, absolutely right, but he gets into those positions really, really regularly. But yeah, so maybe if you do that so often, then maybe you kind of make a little bit of luck to then get one to get bubbled off a defender's back and to wrong foot the keeper into the net.
Then goal number 3, and do you know what, the story, we were talking about how we're going to dissect it. There isn't it's a 3-0 win, but it's not like there's a 3-0 win where there's a huge amount to talk about. It's just like we were functional. We did what was needed to do. We got the third goal, and really it's all about Rico. I mean, it's a long throw. We know that long throws we're a threat from. It's not what we do all the time, but the ball goes into the area. But one thing that, even if we don't get the first contact, you see how we set up. It's almost like we ring fence the area a little bit, and we're looking for are we going to try and keep them in? We're going to try and pick up those seconds. It's what we did against Huddersfield on Tuesday night. Like, apart from the actual positioning of the goal and the time in the game, it's exactly the same thing. The ball's come over. The first contact is ambiguous. Whoever's won it, it's kind of thrown the ball up randomly, and we're first there. And this time, the difference is Riley Towler was first there on Tuesday, bang, goal, 2-2. This time, Rico's on it. Bosh, it's a block. Oh, well, I'll have another go. And then just put it in the back of the net. And do you know what? It's almost just like, it's like you say, it's just relentless, functional, organised. Like, we're just getting used to it. Every single time we get a throw in, Lincoln City fans think that we might score from it. Every single time we get a corner, Lincoln City fans think we might score from it. And whilst we do score a lot of set pieces, if you think about it, as a percentage of set pieces to actual corners and throw-ins and free kicks that we get, it'll be a decent percentage. But what would you say that we score off? 5% of the set pieces that we get?
That's a stat I need to find out.
Maybe, I'll have a look. But then how would you? Because you wouldn't be able to quantify how many throws you get in every game. I don't think.
Can you'll be able to see how many? Oh, yeah, true. But you'll be able to see like total number of corners and throw-ins. You might not be able to do like throw-ins in certain parts of the pitch. I'm not sure, but you can then work it out for total number of goals out from set pieces, which is 24 now, most in League One, unsurprisingly. But you can also do things like shots from set pieces as well, which is obviously going to be pretty high. But ultimately, it's just another string to our bow. It isn't the only element that we have, and a lot of teams, I think, have, to their detriment, have maybe underestimated the other elements of our game. But our set pieces are such a weapon, and I think obviously that it was the icing on the cake yesterday. But in some games, it's the little bit that just opens up a game. It's the first goal as a set piece, and then that allows us to exploit space in behind because the opposition's got to come out. And I know we're certainly not Arsenal, but Arsenal have been criticised a little bit this season for relying on it. But I've got no way of criticising it at all, because so many teams play in a low block against Arsenal, like Rotherham did against us, and in fairness, like Huddersfield did. And sometimes it takes that first kind of blowing down of the door to then create the space to play how you want to play in open play. So I've got nothing against it at all, but it's just another threat, isn't it? And I think not only do we, particularly at home, do we feel that sense of expectation or hope that we definitely could do something from every set piece that's delivered into the box. You can sometimes see opposition teams like visibly looking nervous and threatened. I thought it was really telling on Tuesday night. I know we're not talking about Huddersfield game, but I think it was really telling when I noticed the bench, Huddersfield's bench, when there was, I think it was 8 or 9 minutes, when the board went up and they said there was 8 minutes to go on, like visibly, like they shit themselves. They were absolutely terrified. That has to transpire onto the players. And like, it obviously loved the moment, celebrated hugely when we scored. But honestly, I wasn't surprised. I wasn't surprised at all that we scored that last one at equaliser. But it's interesting how, rattled is probably the best word. Opposition teams are on some of our threatening moments, like those dead balls that we are such a threat at, and you can rehearse them so well. So 3-0, completely deserved. Winning at half time. One half of my brain thought this could be 6 or 7 now, and the other half of my brain thought, I bet it finishes 3-0 and not a lot happens.
Well, before we come on to the second half, I want to pick up on a couple of points from the first half. Now, I had a request from Discord earlier this week to put an article together, which I'll do for some point this week, of League One players that might fit for us if we go up. So if we go up, which current League One players are we not likely to, but do I think, or I might even throw it over to Chris to help bulk it up a bit, that you could go, oh, actually, that player would fit here, or we could take him, or I like him. Now, I made a list. I'm going to cover 4 of the names up and ignore the Ben House champ ? Because that's an article where I'm going to tell you that Ben House is championship ready. So I have a list here. There's some names, but you'll notice that one of the names, not that way, however it is, that way, is crossed out. And the name that I've crossed out is Ajay Martha, who I really liked the lad when they beat us 3-0. I thought he looked really lively. He got on the ball. He looked like an unknown quantity. For me, he's a little bit like an Oscar Thorne was for us at the beginning of this season, in that he's he's a little bit of an unknown quantity at Colchester, and as a team higher up, we've gone, let's bring him in because we can work with that. He's got a bit of pace, he's got a bit of skill, he's got a bit of this and that. And he was a player that in my head, just purely from the eye test, I've gone, I quite like the look of him. He was shit yesterday. And I've scrubbed him out. And I've scrubbed him out not because of anything he did on the ball, because it would be unfair when they're playing the top team in the division. It would be unfair to go, he was really poor, so I don't think he's any good. There was one moment that summed it up for me. So I think he got a whack in the face. I think he did. He's gone down. Game's gone on. He's up. He's arguing. The game, we're attacking. We're in their defensive third. And he was moaning, and he moaned at his bench, and his bench were just like, they were just gesturing, get yourself back kind of thing. And for me, that attitude has just gone, that's why I've crossed him off, because if your attitude isn't, I need to get back and chase, for me, good. You've got to track back. And, you look at other players that we could have signed. There's a story that someone tells, and I won't add the player or anything, but there was a player we were going to sign in the one of the windows recently, and it just didn't feel like a fit because he was an attacking player who balked a little bit at the defensive work. And that's exactly what this guy did. And the other one, by the way, Duncan Watmore as well. Yeah, he's gone down in the area. It's not a penalty. I thought it was at the time. He's banging the turf. We've attacked. He's banging the turf. And then he gets up and he runs 70 yards to remonstrate with the referee. You're not going to get a penalty, mate. Do you know what I mean? From banging the turf. And that he, by the way, is to them what Tendai DeRico and Sonny Bradley and Adam Reach are to us. Do you know what I mean? Played top flight. He's been there. He should be the person that is leading the charge. You wouldn't see Tendai DeRico running 50 yards. You'll see him pelting his bib when we don't get a penalty, and you'll see him getting agitated, but not getting involved in play. And for me, Lee Clark's attitude to both of those players, berating Martha and coming straight out and saying not a penalty, that for me is refreshing. Because
I agree with that.
Fair play to him.
Yeah, I agree with that. Totally agree with that. Two points. Number one on Martha, just had a bit of a stinker yesterday. I totally agree with you in terms of the attitude thing. He also lost the ball more than anyone else yesterday. He lost it 7 times in 45 minutes as well, because he got hauled off unsurprisingly at half time. So that's, he gave the ball away 7 times in the first half, and no one else gave the ball away more than 5 times in 90 minutes. So that's quite funny. But yeah, it's attitude. And I think it was Jez, it might be Michael. I mean, it's probably both of them, let's be honest, because they're so aligned, aren't they? Mentioned when they're looking at little pieces of body language on clips from players, and they call it the what next attitude, that what next mentality. So rather than sticking in the moment and moaning or getting down, or if you've made a mistake, dwelling on it and just what next? What do we do next? What's happening now? What's the next thing that I need to do? And it's like so many of our players, you can just see that is absolutely the attitude that is drilled into them. And you're just right. It's just a stark contrast that you would not see a Lincoln City player do that. You just wouldn't. Now, would you see them getting a bit agitated at not getting given a decision in the moment? Yeah. But if the game is going on, they are back. They're on a recovery run. Every single player in this team would be doing that. Exemplified in the second half, I think, at the one break that Rotherham had with Sam Nombe, and there was, I think, 4 or 5 Lincoln players absolutely sprinting, swarming him to stop him getting any sort of dangerous attack underway. I think it was McGrandles that put the tackle in, but there's 3 or 4 around him. And I just think we've become so used to it now, which is great, but also it's almost nice to get that refreshment of just seeing it from the other side. And that's kind of what is maybe normal or more common in most teams, but it just doesn't feature here. I mean, there is probably therefore a reason as to why we're doing, one of the reasons as to why we're doing so well, and maybe Rotherham are at the other end of the table, because I think pre-season, you look at both squads on paper, I would probably put us ahead of them, but I wouldn't put both teams miles apart from each other like we are. And it's a lot. Sometimes it's not just about technical or tactical attributes, is it? It's that mental side which you can't really measure, but you can absolutely see it in action when you see those sort of moments unfold. What I will say on Rotherham, I don't want this to be a kind of a Rotherham bashing podcast, but it is a little bit, because often when you see teams down in the relegation zone, there's a bit of fight about them. I know at the time we played Burton, they were down there, and that was a real tough game for us. And you could tell that they were scrapping, they were fighting, they were robust. for want of a better phrase, they really gave a shit. And I didn't feel that from Rotherham at all. They seemed dead and buried as soon as it was 1-0. And in the second half, there was no real intensity or belief that they could get anything out of the game. Yeah, they kind of felt like they've gone already. And that's kind of how it felt to me. I know from their perspective, they're probably thinking, well, we're playing against top of the league. We're not going to get a lot from this. It's not really about today. This isn't going to define our season. But I don't know, as a fan, you want to see a bit of fight. And I didn't really see that in comparison to other teams down there that you have seen. I think there's a real difference there. But it's not about Rotherham, is it? It's about us. And we blew them away in the first half.
The only Rotherham player I was mildly impressed with was Baptiste.
Yeah, same.
Who win a lot of his duels. He's on loan from Sheffield United. I really like that lad. I might add him where I've crossed out Marta. Although I think the chances of signing him would be slim because I think he's come from Man City as well. But you look at defensive duels, you take Baptiste out of it, and defensive duels, the highest percentage of contested defensive duels was Zach Jules and Reece James on 4 apiece. 1-1-2 and 1-1-1. Whereas you look at our defensive duels, you got Riley Towler on 9, winning 78%. Ben House on 9, okay, only winning 44%, but that's an attacker essentially. Tom Hamer 6, Conor McGrandle 6, Tom Bayliss 6, Ivan Varfolomiev 6. Do you know what I mean? Like, it's just everywhere, all over the field. Lincoln City. You're smiling because I nearly said Ivan Varfolomiev, and then I remembered it was.
No, that's not why. I'm smiling because I've got some numbers that back this up as well, and it's just fun when we align when we've done separate research.
Excellent. I mean, the thing is, my research was done literally there as I was looking at Y-Scout. But I think.
Sorry, carry on.
I say we are actually coming up to 36 minutes, and we've still got the second half to talk about, of which nothing really happened. So I'll throw it over to you with numbers and to explain why the second half was a non-event that essentially was still incredibly impressive.
Yeah, in a different way. Just to add, I suppose, an extra strength to what you just mentioned about those duels. I always like the recoveries metric, which is like how many loose balls did you drop on? So it's, Michael often mentions about us landing on certain things in certain areas. We don't always aim to win the first ball, but we're always there to win the second. So recoveries yesterday, and you see, you take Baptiste out of it, it's pretty impressive reading. So Derek with the most with 13, McGrandles with 12, then Baptiste with 10 in fairness, House with 8, Towler with 6, and then the next player is then finally Liam Kelly on 5. But yeah, you take Baptiste out of that, then like it's such a huge percentage of those second balls that we're dropping on. Part of that's tactical, part of that is just that mental side of things that we mentioned earlier. Now, in terms of the second half, yeah, we had no need to come out and go all guns blazing. Though in the first maybe minute of the second half, it looked like we were going to. We came out like absolutely on fire, and then things kind of settled and petered, and it was a very professional performance from that point. But we didn't really need to open ourselves up, expose ourselves on the potential counter attack. We just managed the game. So in terms of possession, Rotherham went all the way up to 60%. They had about 90 passes more in the second half than they did the first half. They had, and 70 of those are actually in our half, only just in our half, but we're in our half, but generated 0.06 XG in the second half. They actually made slightly more in the first half. In terms of PPDA, so that's passes allowed per defensive action, we just allowed them to have the ball in front of us. But we did pose a threat on the counter a handful of times. We still had the better chances, which is not surprising because we're really good at being efficient with the ball. But we had no need to really, I suppose, go for the jugular and to put any more gloss on it. I felt it was probably good for 4, if I'm honest, with the quality of chances that we did have in the second half. But there was no, not quite the same intensity to our attacks, I'd say, in the second half, because the rest defence was a little bit tighter. Was there that structure behind the ball had no need to be opened up at all. So yeah, 3-0 was job done. Maybe we're getting greedy. I'd like 4 just because they beat us 3-0. Let's get 4 just so we got more than they did in the kind of aggregate of those 2 fixtures. But that's nitpicking because it doesn't really matter. The most important thing is it was another 3 points, and it's one step closer to where we want to be.
Well, I wanted 6 for revenge for March 2011, but I don't now wish Rotherham ill, if I'm honest. And I know some of their podcasts have said we weren't special and all of this, but I don't wish them ill. I don't really care about them, if I'm honest, and that's probably a good thing given how much I despised them when Evans was there. I just wanted to have a word about Craig Hicks, the referee, as well, because I don't normally criticise referees. I try not to. I go in if I really need to on referees. And like I thought, actually, against Huddersfield, okay, mate, your boy missed a handball, but I don't think he was a terrible ref. I don't think he had a bad game. I really wasn't convinced by Craig Hicks. And I think he was an accident waiting to happen in a game that may have got tasty. If it was a tough game, he's not somebody that I would want. Like, I wouldn't have wanted him in charge of Cardiff. Like, he gave 2 free kicks early doors that were really soft, one either way. He then didn't give the 2 times that House smashed Rafferty. One of them was definitely a free kick. He was right with the Watmore decision. Where's the yellow card? Watmore's banged the turf. He's kicked off. He's chased the referee 70 yards. For me, that's a yellow card. And you've got to kind of, you're meant to be stamping that sort of thing out. And then there was something else in the second half. Oh, Ryan One, like twice, Agbear didn't just like tug his shirt. At one point, he was literally arms around him. And this is a ball over the top. This isn't a corner. Like, it's on the halfway line and there's a ball over the top. And Agbear has got him like this. For those who are listening, that's not great. It's a bear hug if you're listening. If you're watching, he's literally holding him. And like One has got his hands up looking at the referee with this guy's arms around him going, I can't get away. And he doesn't give anything. And for me, like, you can't complain at holding at corners. Like, you should do. Holding at corners is a problem. But if the referee's not going to deal with holding on the halfway line, he's waving it away, going, that's not a free kick. It's a free kick, referee. He's holding him. And he didn't make any impact the outcome at all of the game. Didn't make any difference to the game at all, apart from the fact that it pissed me off, basically.
Just the most important thing.
Yeah, exactly. As people know, it's my site's 10th birthday, so I am the most. No, you know what I mean. Though it really annoyed me. And in the chat, someone's saying Bobby Madeley was nearly as bad. Yeah, do you know what? Bobby Madeley was nearly as bad. So just a couple. Yeah. I don't think our referees have been all that bad this season, but when Craig Hicks to me was just poor without being bad.
Yeah, and I can't say I noticed it as much as maybe you did, because at the time we were 3-0 up. I didn't really care. It didn't matter. It, like you said, didn't
the other
impact
side
the game.
Of the ground.
Yeah, true. But also, your point stands though. If it was 0-0, if we were in a game that had more, like a closer game that had maybe more riding on it, probably wouldn't feel too confident that we're going to get a consistent ref if Mr. Hicks's name was on the team sheet, or particularly on the team sheet, you know what I mean?
yeah. On the bottom of it.
Yeah, that's it. But yeah, we've probably had worse. We've certainly had better this season. But ultimately, like you said, there's not a lot for us to discuss around the second half. It was a professional job done, one step closer. Next.
Well, on that note, I think we will go for a commercial break because we're running a little bit late. Shock horror. 43:20. We used to go through everyone who was watching, and we used to go through the comments. I don't even know how many comments we've got now, but we've it just keeps refreshing, and there's 165 people watching. So we just can't go through everybody's comments. But thank you, obviously, everybody for tuning in. It's hugely appreciated. And there's a couple of first timers.
Yeah, that's what I was about to say. I did see some comments earlier and someone saying that it's the first time they've managed to grab it live. So welcome. Good to see you live. Yeah. This is the bit you don't get on the audio, I suppose. It's not normally that interesting, but it's a bonus bit, I suppose. But hello,
I'll tell you what, shall we take
the bonus content?
So for the bonus content, should we do one half-time question?
Oh, let's do it. That's a good idea.
So for those of you watching now, obviously, because if you're listening at home, you won't be hearing this. So obviously for you watching now, we are doing questions in the second half, and I've just counted them up. We got 29 questions coming in. So we're only going to be able to take 6 or 7 of those. I'll deal with some in an article in the week. And I think probably the midweek podcast might take some questions as well. I have got one question. Why are we late starting? That's my fault, actually. So my wife, Fee, has hurt her back quite a bit. So I kind of didn't rush around too much earlier. I've been working all day, obviously doing articles and things. I went out for a run and kind of popped her in the bath, and then when we've got back, we've done dinner, and so I was just running late. So it happens. But the question I was going to ask, it's actually one from the Discord from Dridimp. So if Dridimp isn't watching and he's listening, that's a bit of a shame. But Dridimp says, who would you rather have as number 9? Chris, Street or Draper?
I know this is. I saw this one earlier. This is tough. It's tough. I mean, it's such a cop out, isn't it, to say I like them both, but I do like them both. But if you put me gun to my head, Freddie Draper.
Gun to my head, Freddie Draper. Nothing to do with the fact he's come through the academy, or nothing to do with that whole one of our own thing. Nothing to do with the fact that I wasn't sold on Street, first of all, because I absolutely am now. I think he's been a great player for us this season. But the way that we play, sometimes Rob Street probably doesn't. He contests the aerial duels, and I'm going to look at it actually. I'm going to just bring it up. But I sometimes feel that he's coming up against bigger defenders, and his kind of number 9 approach is slightly different in that I feel he will contest, but he's one that really wants to be
in behind,
coming in off the back. Yeah, he wants to be getting in behind. He wants to be using his pace, because he is quite quick. He's deceptively quick. Aerial duels won yesterday, contested 10. How many do you think he won?
3.
None.
Oh.
Huddersfield contested 16. How many do you win?
I don't know. I haven't seen.
4. 9 against Stockport, none. Now, that's not to say he's a bad player, but that's to say when the ball goes forward, it's more difficult for it to stick. And by the way, because of the way we play, actually just challenging for it and losing it is just as good, because we tend to gather around that.
Yeah, so I think you'd be surprised, actually, if you look at Fred's. His total aerial duels won is really high in League One per 90, but the percentage that he wins is actually about 30 or 40%, I think. But like you say, he makes it so awkward for defenders to get a clean header on it. So even when he doesn't win that first contact, it's not a clean header. So it drops in those areas that we can drop on.
To back that up, against Northampton, 13 aerial duels, 6-1. Bolton 14, 6-1. Plymouth 18, 7-1. Wigan 9-3. So he's winning anywhere from kind of 50% down to 20% of his headers. For me, the way we play in our number 9, I prefer to see Freddie early doors battering and Street coming on, getting in and around and all that sort of stuff. So
I quite like Street. I know he probably doesn't prefer it, but when he played on the left, like out of possession, but when he was in possession, he was a second striker, kind of in behind, working off Fred. And I really liked that, because he kind of got between the centre-back and the full-back in that space, whereas when he's playing against the back 4 on his own, then he's got 2 centre-backs that are generally contesting with him. It's a different style of game. Yes, I've got no issue with him up there at the moment at all. Zero interest. And in some games, there's going to be more space in behind it. It suits him more than it does Fred. They've both got their own strengths and weaknesses, haven't they? Which is why we put them both in the squad. They've both got their different elements, different profiles. But the question was, if you had to pick one, who would you have? And yeah, I picked Freddie, and you did too.
Right. So let's think about coming back in. Hello and welcome back to the second half of the Stacey West podcast. If you're listening at home, you've just missed a 5-minute discussion on who we would prefer to see play as the number 9 and why we were late going live. But that won't bother you, because you don't listen live, you're listening at home, and everybody, home, live or not, is welcome here. So the second half of the Stacey West podcast, of which there are probably 17 minutes, and there really should be more, but it's me and Chris. We've taken some questions. Now, I asked the Patreons for questions in the Discord and in the overall Patreon back end, and we got nearly 30 questions. So I'll deal with some in an article later in the week. We might push some for Wednesday night. So if you want to get additional ones in and you're on the Patreon or wherever, please do get them in. If you're not a Patreon, there are all sorts of great benefits, one of which will be a live show, which is on April the 11th after Leighton Orient, which is going to be particularly good. It's technically free. Tickets are £5, but your first drink is free. So there's no profit to be had. That's just so that people don't just get tickets and then don't come. But if you're a Patreon, you will be getting information on that in your inbox either tonight, or if I decide to go and play FIFA instead, tomorrow morning. So there we go. And if you're listening to this on Tuesday, yesterday, rather than tomorrow. So Chris, you and I looked through these questions, and we thought we'd pick ones that have got some good discussion points, but at the same time, with only about 17 minutes to go, brief discussion points, and that's more from me to you than from us to the listener.
There's one question that's going to be very difficult to be brief with, to be honest, but I'll do my best.
Is it the budget one?
Yes.
Right. Well, we'll go straight into that. So HG505 is the username from the Discord, and he or she, I'm pretty sure it's a he in this instance, asks, do you think our current model regarding player wages and transfer fees and trying to be as sustainable as possible will hinder our chances of staying up in the Championship, or will we be able to adapt to the step up in expenditure and cement ourselves in the league? Oh, it's brilliant. What a great discussion point. I'll throw it to you, Chris. I've got some ideas on this.
Yeah, such a good question. And obviously we're talking about this assuming we're going to be playing in the Championship next season. But of course it's not guaranteed yet, so let's not get carried away. Anyway, to answer the question directly, I don't think we're going to have a personality transplant, as Liam Scully often calls it. Like, we've done incredibly well by doing what we've been doing for the last few years, building gradually, adding little bits here and there, just nudging each little element that we can, maximizing it probably with what we have. Big difference though is that, and this is about budget. So apparently we're not 18th in the budget table. We've been lying because it changed in January. We're now 17th. So sorry everyone, we've maybe been slightly shortchanging ourselves there a little bit. Principle still applies, doesn't it? We've still got a bottom, a well bottom half budget. But ultimately, in terms of our current payroll, it's roughly around, it's 5 point something million. Now, at least that's what it's estimated at on a couple of websites that have good guesses, but can't ever claim to be 100% accurate. The teams above us in the budget table, one or two of them are like triple that. Most of them are around double that are in the kind of top 6 area. So, but I think the important factor is the actual number. So it's about 5 million ahead of us as to where most people are, where most clubs are that are in that kind of top half. So we've kind of overachieved by 5 mil. Now, we get 1.5 million income in terms of solidarity payments from the Premier League, TV rights, etc. It's around 1.5 million quid. Every League One club gets that 1.5 million quid. In the Championship, that goes up to 11. So we're going to have an extra 9.5 million pounds just coming into the coffer, which is effectively free money. Now, of course, the current squad, those that play regularly in the Championship, their salaries are going to go up to Championship standards, as is only right. But I think that's absolutely going to give us a little bit of wiggle room to compete in the Championship. Looking at the website I looked at earlier, again, not looking at it as this club definitely pays this amount, but it's not bad for an average benchmark of if you're looking at like a group of clubs. It appears that the lowest budgets in the Championship are around 11 to 12 mil. It's not out of the realms of possibility that we could invest 30 or 40% of that additional income from the Championship in a wage bill, or as collective in terms of transfer budget, wage bill, etc., which still keeps us maybe 1 million or 2 behind most other teams. But crucially, like, the gap between where we are in League One, not even in terms of like position in the financial table, but just sheer total amount, the actual number, the gap from where we are currently to where we are in the league is, I would argue, bigger than the gap from what our budget maybe will be in the Championship to the gap of what success probably will look like, which is finishing 20th. That's what we'd all take it, wouldn't we? On day one of the kickoff pre-season, you said you could finish 20th. We'd say, yes, thank you very much. We've only got to overachieve by 4 positions maybe. And the gap from where we maybe could feasibly have a budget to where everyone else is going to be, I reckon isn't going to be any bigger, probably slightly smaller than the gap in terms of actual number from where we are today compared to our league position. So, and I don't think we need to change too much. I think it's all relative. It goes up within the stature that you're at, but I think our approach will be relatively similar to what it's been, and ultimately it's worked, hasn't it?
Yeah, I agree. I mean, I find it interesting there. I just put in that for context, our turnover in 24-25 was 8 million, and we will kind of double that, won't we, almost instantly. It'll be more than double our turnover. I mean, just to touch on the question, which I've actually now deleted. So hang on, I need it back. It was interesting about our current model regarding player wages and transfer fees trying to be sustainable. Yes, we will. And I don't think that is a bad thing, because although we'll try and be sustainable, the sustainability is at a higher level than it is now. And I think that's kind of the point you're almost making. But we'll have a little bit more wiggle room, because as a championship team, we'll be able to pick from a pool of English players that probably aren't available to us as a League One team, i.e. League One players. If a player's in League One playing for Reading or Huddersfield this season, if it's Reading or Huddersfield wanting him and he's at Lincoln, what does he do? He goes to Reading or Huddersfield, as Pordy O'Connor and Sean Rowan showed. With us being in the Championship, if there's a Pordy O'Connor or a Sean Rowan at another club elsewhere in League One, and Lincoln City go, I think there's value in him, what's he going to do? Because we're now suddenly able to offer something else. Promotion isn't just about that 11 million. It's about stature. You look at Oxford. Would Oxford have had a chance of signing Jamie McDonnell this transfer window, this winter window, had they been in League One? No, because he was on loan at Mansfield. And why would Forest go, well, we'll take him from Mansfield and move him to Oxford? And would Oxford have gone, well, we'll pay £1 million for it? No, because they wouldn't have been fishing in those waters. So with smart recruitment, our model can actually be more successful in the Championship than it is in League One, because we've got a better pool of players. Bear in mind, that's an extra couple of ESC places as well. Okay, we'll talk about Eric Ring in a second. But like, if there's 3 more Ivan Varfolomeevs out there that we've got our eye on, that we think there's value there, we're now able to bring them in the Championship and offer them a little bit more money if we need to. The trick not for us, but for Lincoln City next year is balancing that against the threat of an immediate relegation.
Absolutely. Because we don't want to just spaff it all in one season.
Exactly. And the fear is, like, you come down on the last day of the season and it's like, oh, we've done our best and all that sort of thing. And then all of a sudden you're lumbered with, and I'm sure the way we recruit, by the way, we wouldn't do it, but then you're lumbered with players on money that actually you can't sustain, or all of your players decide.
I think Jez has already mentioned this, but I could be wrong. And in every player's current contract, if we get promoted, their wage will go up, but it will only go up if they play, I can't remember the exact number, but a certain number of matches in the Championship in order to trigger that wage rise. If we get relegated, it goes back down to where it is now immediately. So you imagine any new signings will have the same clauses written in their contract.
That's what I meant, but it's about being able to balance that again, because some new signings would go, well, I'm not having that clause. And
I genuinely feel we wouldn't sign that player then.
No, I don't either.
I think we're incredibly strict with these sort of clauses, apparently. We're happy to walk away from the deals if the player chooses not to do it. But the difference now is it realistic that we're going to be able to compete Championship wages with any other Championship club? No. The difference is, though, we're now going to be able to compete with clubs in League One that we weren't able to compete with. So let's say Reading are offering Pordy X amount that we couldn't quite stretch to. Huddersfield are offering Sean X amount that we couldn't quite stretch to. We can at least offer similar terms. And then you got the choice. Do you want to go and play for Lincoln Championship or those other 2 teams in League One? That's the pool of players I think that we're now going to be able to access that we maybe haven't been able to.
Do you want to go to Spurs next season or Bromley? Your choice. Right, a couple more questions. Will be a little bit punchier. That's a good question, though. I really like that. This one is from Bish, and it's one that I think kind of plays into this, and it's one that I am going to answer with a heavy heart. So I will ask an answer and then let it go over to Chris. Do you think Eric Ring will get an opportunity, and could the anticipated change in how teams play in the Championship suit him better? The general consensus seems to be that players have more time that could benefit players with more technical ability. I am incredibly sad to say this, but I think we are witnessing the final hours of Eric Ring's Lincoln City tenure, because he's quite clearly out on the fringes. But unlike some of those on the fringes, like Deji Eloweri, for instance, he's not a new face. He's somebody that's come in and hasn't quite cracked it here one way or another. Having met Eric, he's a really lovely guy, but I have this really strong feeling from him. He's got a huge connection to his homeland. He's got a huge connection to the club that he left. He's got a girlfriend who's a professional athlete over in Sweden playing some game that I'd never heard of that is absolutely crazy over in Sweden. I just think with the ESC slots as well, we're going to look at that and go, we're probably going to cut our losses. And I think that will be a return to Sweden for him. It's a heavy heart. I think there's a great player in there. I'm just not sure if that's a great player in the English league or not.
Yeah, on Eric directly, I agree. I would also challenge the perception that you get more time in the Championship. I'd say it's probably the opposite. There's certainly less room for error. Certainly, if you lose the ball in the middle part of the pitch, the speed in which you get counted on is significantly higher in the Championship than it is in League One. The physical demands are greater. So at the moment, our physicality is something that we're able to have as a real strength over our peers in League One. Like we outrun pretty much every team. I don't know if we're going to be able to do that as like the bar is going to be so much higher to have that. And I think if Eric sadly is unable to consistently deal with the physicality of League One, I'd struggle to see him be able to do that in the Championship. So yes, it's a really heavy heart, and we haven't actually seen him, so we have no idea how he's been. He might be doing incredibly well in training and be primed to have a brilliant end to the season, but the team's doing so well, you can't really justify dropping any of the other players that have been in around the kind of first team squad for a while. But with the evidence that we have seen, I would say sadly it's maybe time to part ways. But you'd hope that Eric will be a better player for his experience in England ultimately, and be able to go back with an additional skill set that maybe he didn't arrive with.
I would also say, just to cap that off, there's a little bit of the element of Sean Long about him in that, if it wasn't for other players in his position playing well, if it wasn't for the team doing well, he may well have made a decent Lincoln City player. And look, I'm writing him off, might prove me wrong. At the beginning of this season, I backed him and I love the lad. He's got a little bit of something. He wants to get at you. I really, really like him. I think he was a great story. And it is a really, really heavy heart that I say that these things about. I think that he's over in England. And hopefully, I'd love to be proven wrong. A couple more questions. Sorry, go on. You done?
I just said I agree. I'd like to be proven wrong as well.
Yeah. A couple more questions. There's a couple from Joey Jojo Jr., which I really like. This didn't come in Discord. This came directly through the Patreon. So there's two, and one of them plays into one from CJ as well. So first of all, and bear in mind, we're talking Championship again, and we're getting a little bit ahead of ourselves. But Joey Jojo Jr. says, are there any teams currently in the Championship that play similar to us? Well, we know Arsenal do in the Premier League.
But I wouldn't say they played that similar to us. They're just good at set pieces.
No. We're basically Arsenal. Spurs will find that out. But you did, so you've done a little bit of your magical stats analysis, the football stuff that you do, and you've picked one side out who you think are similar to Lincoln City.
Yes, there's definitely not an exact correlation, by the way. A couple of teams that maybe have some similarities in certain aspects, but the one I think that we're most closely aligned with is probably Millwall. They're a team who is pretty happy to not have the ball, only 17th for overall possession, well in the 40s rather than the 50s for it. Fifth most successful long balls in the league, highest cross accuracy, which is something that we have. They actually put more crosses in than we do. We don't put that many crosses in compared to other League One teams, but our completion is very, very high. I think it's the highest in League One. We're very, very efficient with the ball. We know we don't need a lot of the ball to create a lot of it. I've been putting a spreadsheet together each week for the last, every week of the season. And something that's really impressive is that our possession is always low, generally as an average, but things like touched in the opposition box, shots on target, shots from inside the 18-yard box, passes in opposition half are always well above what the possession would suggest. Like they're generally in our favour, whereas the possession is generally obviously in the opposition's favour, which just shows efficiency. Millwall have got pretty much the same skill set in terms of that efficiency. They're also almost the same in terms of set pieces. They've only conceded 8, scored 21, got a plus 13 goal difference. We've got a plus 14 goal difference from set pieces. So yeah, I would say if there is a similarity, it's probably them. If anything, they're probably not quite as solid as defensively and open play as we are. But ultimately, it was quite fun to find out that we're most similar to a team that's in the playoffs in the Championship and not, let's say, Sheffield Wednesday or Oxford. But stylistically, obviously there's different quality on the pitch, but stylistically, in terms of is our style suitable for Championship football, I would say Millwall's success would suggest, yeah, probably.
2 points outside the automatic promotion spots as well. So it could be a trip that we avoid if we are to get promoted. So just 2 more questions before we finish. This one is kind of, there's 2, I'll say both questions because I think they're the same one. So Joey Jojo Jr., which I think sounds like a rap artist. I quite like that. Do you think we'd need to adapt our style in any way to stand a better chance of staying up? And CJ said, do you think the coaching team is actively trying out new approaches with an eye to the championship? And if so, what do you think they're looking to tweak or add to the locker?
I'd like to address CJ's question initially, but I think you can back it up with something that you actually wrote about in your write-up, but off the back of like some conversations after the game yesterday, which was, maybe we have been tweaking some things tactically recently, but we've also, maybe for the first time for a good number of weeks, had a few knocks to deal with. And also for the first time for a few weeks, have had quite a heavy fixture schedule, which has had a lot of rotation. So it maybe means that there's going to be tweaks more so than we've seen before. But also, I genuinely don't feel that we look any further ahead than one match. Like Michael is so repetitive in saying that, but because he's so, he wants to make it really clear that like, honestly, we do not look any further forward than one game. If as soon as you do that, you're taking your eye off the ball and you can get bitten on the arse. Like that's what football does. So it really is. We just look at the next game. So I believe him. And I think, the little tweak that we played against Huddersfield arguably didn't really work in the first half, but it was designed specifically to try and counter something that we thought Huddersfield would do. Maybe that one didn't work quite so well because Huddersfield didn't do what we expected them to. But I certainly wouldn't expect any of the tweaks to be made now with an eye of experimenting for the championship. I think it is solely with an eye on what gives us the best possible opportunity to win the next game. And I hope that isn't too club centric. I just believe Michael when he says it, and I think the tweaks that we have sometimes made kind of make logical sense for the opposition that we're playing against. The Huddersfield one, I wasn't quite as I didn't quite tweak onto as much, but that's I don't have any inside information. There's probably something I completely missed. But in the other ones, like the Cardiff one, for example, made total sense. It was a similar shape that we played against Chelsea, but with an extra player on the front line. There were some similarities there. There were some tweaks, but I think it's solely due to the opposition that we're playing and to give us the best opportunity to win the next game. I don't think they look any further ahead than that. I really don't.
What was it I wrote that you said I should follow up on? Well,
you mentioned, I think you had a conversation or two with people at the club who were just kind of highlighting the fact that they're just looking no further ahead than one game.
Oh, as I was coming. I think that was actually in our private WhatsApp chat. Potentially, I might be wrong, but
sorry, I know I read it somewhere earlier.
I tend to agree, but I actually think that given who we are, given the resources that we have, and given all of the factors, the only way, if we go up, to approach the championship is the same way that we've approached this season. Nothing changes. We're still going up against teams with bigger budgets, so-called better players. So we still have to be organised. We still have to be better than the sum of our parts. We still have to work hard. We still have to make the most. I'm sounding like Michael Scabala myself now, but we still have to make the most of those turnovers, make the most of the ball when we've got it, be clinical. It'll be harder. But I don't see there's any other way that we can play by going up to the championship. If we go up and we go, look at us, Billy Big Bollocks, we're one of the best 44 teams in the country now. We're going to start trying to play like Barcelona. We'll be relegated quicker than Sheffield Wednesday were this season. We've got to go up and do what we do. And there's a reason, by the way, that Preston North End and Millwall and teams like that stay in the championship season after season after season, because they don't try and reinvent the wheel. They make the most of what they've got. And they're Preston in particular, and I know stylistically there are huge differences. Preston in particular impress me because they might have been a big club once, but they're not now. They're not. If Preston were in League One, nobody would bat an eyelid. Nobody would go like Birmingham were in League One or Sunderland or Ipswich. No one would go, Preston don't deserve to be there because it's Preston. And Millwall, maybe so. Maybe people might say, Millwall probably deserve to be there. But John Preston, no, not for me. And respect.
They're a bit like a Barnsley or maybe a Wigan sort of sized club. Like definitely not, like if they're in League Two, you go, bloody hell, like that's their fault.
100%.
There would be they wouldn't be one of those teams that would be the traditional big club that's stuck in League One. They would be a big-ish club in League One that has a realistic chance of getting back out of it. But I think Preston do incredibly well to be so consistent in the Championship. And we know, let's be honest, next season, if we get there, it's going to be an adventure, whatever happens, and success will be staying up. Wouldn't it be great if we could become a club that stays there for a while, but and being like a Preston, like where you just become part of the furniture, and that would be the dream, wouldn't it?
The worry is that when you're in a division for a while and you're actually consolidating, that's felt as stagnation. And I think we saw that. I'm not going to get into the argument that I caused on Twitter deliberately earlier today, but March the 1st, 2025, people were on social media wanting Michael Skubala out. Not going to argue the rights and wrongs of saying they wanted Skubala out, because I've been doing that all day. Well, I've been ignoring people who have tried to do it with me all day. So I'm not going to do that. But the point is that, rightly or wrongly, those people got to a point where they felt that we should be better than we were at that moment. 1 win in 11 or something along those lines. And they were feeling that's something that has to be questioned. That's going to happen if we get in the Championship. If we get in the Championship, there are going to be runs of games, runs of weeks where we do not win football games. I believe that, by the way. I believe that. And it breeds, maybe consolidation breeds complacency, and complacency breeds expectancy. And that's the worry. And that's why I have respect for the likes of Preston, who, they're not really ever in and around the playoffs, are they? I don't know where they are actually this season. Let me just have a quick look before I say that.
I think they're mid-table.
Yeah, they're mid-table. They're 13th. They're not going up. They're not going down.
You can't be more mid-table than 13th.
You can't be more mid-table than 13th. And yet, it doesn't feel like they're ever a team that are in serious danger. Ryan Lowe was there for 4 seasons. Paul Heckenbottom's been there for a couple of seasons. That for me is kind of the next level now. If we were to go up, that's the level. We want to be 13th, 15th, 16th. We don't, we don't want to be the big spenders crashing. But to get there, you have to have all the fans on board as well. One more question, because we're already massively over. And by the way, just a quick one. Bruno Andrade has been released by Rushden. So I don't know if you know this story, but Rushden are in the Northern Premier Midlands division or something like that. They are 5 points outside the playoffs. They were playing Loughborough Students yesterday, who are bottom 4. Loughborough Students take a 1-0 lead. 15 minutes in, Bruno Andrade and his other centre forward, they're playing 2 up top, start punching shit out of each other. Both get sent off. Rushden have lost 3-0. Bruno, by the way, is their leading scorer, their talisman, their top player, and now they've sacked him. That man,
the mighty have fallen, eh?
He could have played higher as well. He had it, but from what doesn't sound like he had it right quite up there, which is a shame. Last of all, then, Shane Clark has asked this question. If you were to do your all-time Lincoln City 11 again, who would get in from this squad?
This is so harsh. Honestly, this is going to sound weird, but probably not that many. But I think that's almost a backhanded compliment in a way, because it just goes to show the team ethic. That's it. They really are greater than some of the parts. The parts are pretty good, but do any of them individually stand out enough to get into there? I would say maybe Tendai Darikwa could be in with a shout there on current form. There's one or two, of course, that you could have an argument against. But is this the best team? Yeah, it's the best team I've ever known as a Lincoln City fan. I know people have known other teams that are a little bit older, but it's the best Lincoln City team I've known for ever. But in terms of the individual parts, you can probably pick 1 or 2 other players that would be certainly in the conversation in a team of the all-time 11 that would rival any individual in this team. But I think that goes to just prove the quality of the whole of the current squad.
Well, I'm just looking over. I picked my all-time 11 so what's this dated? April 2020. So this is pre-COVID. So I've got Alan Marriott in goal. I may pick another goalkeeper now, but it probably wouldn't be Wickens. No disrespect to him, but we've had so many good goalkeepers. My right back was Neil Eardley. I'd probably be tempted to put Tendai in there now.
Yeah, I think
potentially. So. Left back was Kevin Austin. That stays as it is. Right centre half is Paul Morgan. That stays as it is. Left centre half is Sean Raggett.
Okay, so we could definitely have someone to rival Sean Raggett, I think.
But this is only my all-time 11, so this isn't, I'm not looking back at things like the teams in the 80s. So I've gone for like a 4-4-2, right midfield. So wide right, Gareth Ainsworth. I'm keeping that. Left midfield, Peter Gaines, keeping that. In the 6, the holding midfield, Michael Boswick. Interesting to pair him with Conor McGrandles. The 8, or an attacking midfield, Richard Butcher. Again, like, is Richard Butcher better than the midfielders that we had now? Hard to debate because it's different levels and different eras. In terms of impact at the time, I'd probably still have Butcher. And up top, I've gone for Gordon Hobson and Jamie Forrester. Would I have Ben House, Freddie Draper, James Collins, Rob Street? I don't know. And would I have those over some of the other centre forwards that we've had, like in the past couple of seasons, or the other attackers? What is a centre forward these days? Should Matt Reed have been in there? I don't know. So again, I'm with you. Like, in terms of teams, like, have I seen a better unit than this? Well, we're 22 unbeaten. So depending on how you measure success, there's never been a better Lincoln City team than this, because no Lincoln City team's gone 22 unbeaten.
Being top of League One's probably a pretty good barometer, I'd say.
Yeah, top of League One, which, certainly in our lifetime, you'd go back to the Michael Appleton season, but it was very different with COVID and a lot of loan players. When the loan players go back, by the way, who will we lose? Ryan One, Alfie Lloyd. That it?
Mainly, innit? There's not a lot else.
So yeah, again, it's a great question, but not very many. But that doesn't say that they're not the best Lincoln City team of all time. Yeah. But with that in mind, and with the fact that we are quite nastily, or quite a lot over time, because it's actually 10-9. Yeah, with that in mind, is it the best Lincoln City team of all time? Well, nobody will be claiming that at the moment. Sonny Bradley certainly was staying away from saying that we had achieved anything at all, but his post-match interview had a flavour. A little bit like when you bite into a crisp and you don't know what it is, but it's a flavour that you like. You can feel it. And what I'm tasting is the championship. Or rather, what I'm smelling, cooking in the kitchen, is the championship. It's wafting in on the breeze. It's cooking smells through the house. And who knows, by Easter Monday, we might not be tucking into chocolate eggs. We might not be tucking into our Easter dinner. We might be tucking in to the fucking championship. Up the Imps.
Up the Imps.